Grab Life by the Goals is the podcast for passionate badasses to get inspired, activate their potential, and crush their goals. In a nutshell, we do big shit around here. Whether you're looking to disrupt your career, start or grow a business, or simply have a more kick-ass life, you're in the right place. Come to be inspired, find your swagger, dream bigger, and take actual steps to level up your life. All with a side of real talk and raunchy humor. I'm your host, Lauren Widrick. I'm a life and business coach, and I'm right here on the roller coaster with you. Are you ready? Let's do this. What's up, my badass? Welcome back to another episode of the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. Today is going to be so much fun because I'm with a couple that anytime I spend time with them, I just end up laughing, sometimes crying a little bit, getting really inspired. So today is going to be absolutely amazing. So we're here today with Blair Primis and Erin Santos Primis. They are a power couple here in Charlotte. They do so much to give and pour into the community, and they are keynote speakers at the Grab Life by the Goals Summit, which is January 6th and 7th in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Blair and Erin, hello, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Oh, hello. Excited to be here.
Yes. So Blair, I warned you we were going to talk about this on the podcast today, but this Grab Life by the Goals Summit is a dream come true for me, something I've always wanted to do. And Blair was the very first person I talked to about it like a year and a half ago. So when I first had this idea, we had like a standing coffee set up or a drink or something. And I was like, okay, I had a hidden agenda for setting up this coffee because I want to do this conference. And you seem like the guy because Blair is a chief marketing officer. He teaches marketing and leadership, and he sits on boards here in Charlotte. I'm like, can I bend your ear on this? Is this a thing? And you looked at me and you were like, it's a thing. And I believe if we didn't have that conversation, we might not be sitting here planning the second annual summit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what's interesting is sometimes you just need like a nudge. People just need a nudge to like actually do the thing they want to do, right? So I was just maybe a nudge, a nudge for you. Having said that, I think like this is what makes communities great is that there are things like this for people to attend and to be a part of. And, places you go that don't have these things don't understand that they're missing them. So it's nice that we can do it. Yeah. So no, it was my pleasure. And I'm excited that it's here. And the fact that it's even bigger and better this year is testament to the first year's success, right? So it's awesome.
Absolutely. And then I reached back out to you and was like, I have a secret crush from afar on your wife. Is there any way that you two might want to speak together? Because Erin has an amazing story as well. And she's the president of the Isabella Santos Foundation, which provides funding, resources, and programming for rare pediatric cancers. Amazing story. And so, Erin, I'm so glad that you're speaking at this year's conference too. Not just because of all of those great stories, but because you're fucking cool. And I just love hanging out with you.
Oh, that's such a compliment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we had dinner with all the speakers the other night, the speakers that have been lined up in Uptown Charlotte. And I have not laughed that hard in a really long time because we were trying to have this official, like, this is the agenda of the summit. And then we all went on tangents talking about our kids and like stuff that's not safe for this podcast. But I just laughed so hard at that dinner.
So did we.
No, I came home and I was like, I was way too much that night. I was embarrassed the minute I got in the car.
What?
Oh no!
You get an old fashioned and a glass of wine in you, and then you're just telling everybody everything. So I was regretting it immediately, but he was like, "No, that's just who you are. You're fine."
I had those like little face pains of like I must have been laughing so much. Like my jaw is like I can feel that I've been laughing a lot tonight. It was really hilarious. It was great. It was really great. Great.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you can be your full self and let your freak flag out and talk the way you want to talk and talk about what you want to talk about, you connect with people who are that way as well. And you inspire others to be that way. So you all are both luminaries in our community, extremely successful, extremely generous, and we can talk about all this like not safe for work stuff over dinner. So
yeah, exactly. Precisely.
So when we first got together, so Blair let Erin know about my crush from afar. Fortunately, she said yes. So they're going to be speaking together on the main stage at the Grab Life by the Goals Summit. So when that decision was made, we got together at a brewery. We were trying to come up with a topic. And Blair came up with a topic at first that was really great. Do you remember what it was?
Like just every day try to be a little bit better.
Yes, that was the topic. And Erin did a little thumbs down and was like, we can do better on that. And so what came out was the beginnings of a talk called Success in the Second Act. So that's the working title of their talk for the Grab Life by the Goal Summit on January 6th and 7th. I'm going to keep saying that so you get your ticket. But talk to, like, they've both been through a lot of really fascinating, hard things, and it ultimately brought them together. So I'd love for each of you to talk for a moment about what was going on in your air quote first act to kind of set the scene.
For sure. Yeah. So I moved to Charlotte in 2007. Was married, 3 kids, lived in South Charlotte-ish, like, Fairview Road kind of area. Very happy, successful family, relationships, everything was great. Kind of standard, kind of house of the yard, did all that great stuff. And in 2010, really around 2010, fall or winter of 2010, my wife at the time, she and I had a conversation about our future. So we had a conversation about our future, and it turns out that she was interested in somebody else. And the somebody else not only was not me, but it was also not a male. And so my challenge was to decide, how to not just, manifest success through being divorced and having a family, but actually having a wife who is now married and has another child with another woman. And so for me, it was like this dual moment of like, okay, so like not being a victim, but sort of being like, I'm a little bit of a victim here because not only am I going to be a divorcee, but I actually often like support this person in their journey of change and exploration because we were together for 18 years and married for 13 of them. So it isn't like, we had 18 months and 13 months. I mean, this was, coming up on 2 decades of knowing one another. And we had 3 kids and family and relationships. And so I had a very interesting couple of years where I spent time trying to manage my life going forward as somebody who was going to be single and who was divorced and managing kids and all those things, while at the same time not being disparaging or, not supportive to somebody who's going through a life change who just happens to be my ex-wife and the mom and mother of my kids. And so, like everybody, right, I had, 3 to 6 months of like all the stages of your emotional like span, right? So, like shock, then pissed offness, then furious, and then like acceptance, then like maybe there's a way forward kind of thing. Now, fast forward to 8 or 9 years later, being single, when I met Erin, the irony is like you don't really know, you have no plan for life. I mean, not to make it destiny driven, but I do think that there is some component to like things are maybe supposed to happen for certain reasons. The universe weighs in interesting ways, and everybody's timetable is just different. Some people meet the love of their life when they're 16 and stay together for 100 years. Others don't. Others have multiple. Others shift. Their lives adjust. And I think, you get comfortable understanding that maybe your timetable is just different than others. And to sum up, I think what was fascinating for me is didn't realize that you could find somebody who actually makes you better every day and who you maybe been missing and didn't know you were until you meet them. And so that's what happened with me and Erin.
Wow. Okay, so that takes us to that's your first act, Blair, is going through the stages of shock, anger, grief, acceptance, the new normal. And so the reason I'm just highlighting these things that he said is there are people listening to this podcast right now that are going through something that they weren't expecting. And it can be a small thing, a huge thing. But if those stages are happening to you, it's part of the process. I cannot wait for you guys to hear the second act stuff. But I want to shift over to Erin for a second and talk a little bit so people can learn about your air quote first act.
Yep. Sure. So I, like Blair, started out, got married to someone I thought was, my person, and got pregnant on my honeymoon, had a little girl. A year later, had a little boy, and then came to find out that my first daughter had a rare form of pediatric cancer called neuroblastoma, which, other than St. Jude's commercials, I didn't even know really about pediatric cancer. So it was quite a shock. So, we started this journey with Isabella and, trying to keep her alive. Started her out at Levine Children's Hospital, ultimately ended up going to Sloan Kettering in Manhattan, and, living in New York on and off for 5 years. During a remission, we had another baby. Sophia. It was just a whirlwind of a 5-year period that she battled. And all during that time, I was blogging, and this was kind of before social media. So I kind of wrote in a journal that people kind of started following, and it just really took off. At the end, we had about 750,000 people that were reading what was going on with Isabella. So we kind of became little local celebrities in Charlotte, started the foundation, and really just kind of took her lead on it. She was just so charismatic, and she would speak at events, and we would do a race every year, and people would stop us in Target because they knew who she was, and she would ask them to come to our race and ask people to donate blood. And it was absolutely incredible to watch this 4, 5, 6-year-old little girl, while everyone was, at the pool in the summer, and she was walking around Spectrum Center collecting donations for the Ronald McDonald House. She was just a completely different kid than actually any kid I had ever met. So that's kind of how the foundation started. We started raising money for neuroblastoma research, and then expanded it after she passed away to include all other rare cancers. But, when she passed away, it was difficult because I wasn't probably with the person that I should have been with. Mm-hmm. And grief and cancer and, fighting for your kid's life every day definitely doesn't bring out the best into people. And especially, they said after your child dies, you either get divorced, have a baby, or move away. And we were like, that's so obnoxious. And it was just, boy, were they right. You just can't recover from something like that. It got to the point after she had passed away that, we kept the foundation going. I was kind of grieving through the process and raising a ton of money, but we just weren't happy people. Ultimately decided to get a divorce, which was hard because we were a very public family. But by the time that we got divorced, I was the most broken person you'd ever met. I thought, I don't want to be with anyone the rest of my life. It got to the point where, like, I didn't even like to be touched. Like, someone would try to give me a hug, and I'd be like, I couldn't even handle someone even touching me. I was just such an absolute disaster. So, but after I got divorced, I picked up sold my house out in Marvin, and picked up my kids and moved them up to Cherry, sold everything I had, started completely over, and tried to have a new life. And finding someone wasn't a part of my journey. I never thought I would ever remarry. And then I met Blair, who, we kind of said at dinner that he and I are we are the same person. We just have different anatomy, I think. We have the same terrible humor and dryness, and about the way that we handle things, and stubborn, but we just, he is my soulmate. And it's just so funny to think that I never in a million years ever thought I would find somebody. And it's odd because, the foundation is doing so much now. So people always say, I'm so sorry that you lost your daughter. And I have to say that, so much good has come from it. And honestly, if she were alive, I wouldn't have met Blair either. So of course you always wish that had never happened to her, but all of the things that are happening, from the money that we're raising and people that are involved, and trials and doctors and all this, but also to be able to find him in the process and have his children now be my children. There's just been so much that has come from such a horrible tragedy that ended up showing me that, there's always, I guess, a light at the end of the tunnel. And I met him from going to Ortho Carolina and pitching ISF to him, which he of course turned down, but then he became the chair of my board. And then we started getting a little frisky, and he had to stop being the chair of my board. And we decided to go down that path instead, and got married last year.
Oh my God, Erin, thank you for sharing that. I'm sitting here just trying to hold back tears, just listening. First, thank you. I might cry while I say this, but thank you for sharing those stories of Isabella being there, like going through this treatment, but also encouraging people to donate and help other people go. How does a young child have the wherewithal to do that? Like, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, I don't know. And the crazy thing is that all these years later, I don't know if I've ever met another kid, because it was just, those kids just aren't built like that. It was really, this whole thing happened because of what she saw for herself. And I always think that she lived long enough to make sure that this was going to happen, because she just kept beating it. And if she would have passed away after year 1, I'm not sure if we would be here. So it felt like she stayed until she knew. So, which is silly.
Oh God.
Yeah.
All
To be
right.
real.
We're gonna have to pause this
Universal action
podcast so I
figures.
can go collect myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. And it's also not lost on me that you say it's the worst thing that can happen to a parent, but also all of the good that has come from this. Not everybody is able to see it that way. We've had family members lose children and it's not gone that direction. Like these things can break you. And somehow you and Isabella and Isabella's spirit have created all of this good. So can you share a little bit about the Isabella Santos Foundation and the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So we are in our 16th year of the Isabella Santos Foundation, and right now we are in the last couple of months. So by the time we meet in January, we will have finally paid off our $5 million commitment to Levine Children's Hospital. So, which is amazing, because right now there isn't a center for kids to go that have rare cancer. So we decided to build one here in Charlotte so that people wouldn't have to leave to get the best treatment. So we brought in the best doctors and best nurses and trials and everything to where we initially built it so that people wouldn't have to leave Charlotte to have the best treatment. But now we're finding that kids from 25 different countries are coming here to get the best treatment. So we built this amazing center, and we do everything from the minute a child is diagnosed to help with family services to, the treatment that they get after and everything in between. So right, next year, we're going to be expanding to start supporting all hospitals in North and South Carolina, so 10 additional hospitals. And we're in the process of rebranding and getting all that set because that will be a whole new adventure for ISF to kind of expand, through 2 states.
And so you started this it's a nonprofit, correct? This
Yes.
foundation from scratch. Had you ever done nonprofit work or foundation work before? Or was this totally new for you?
No. I was a finance and computer major out of Ohio when I moved here and got a job at Tree, which too bad I'm not working there anymore. We'd have a much bigger home. But no, I had no experience in this. In the first year, we raised $7,000, and now we're raising close to 2 million, hoping to raise close to 4 million next year. It really has been a learn as you go. And these situations can either go really bad or really good with a founder-led organization because, you have this personal thing of I take, when I ask people for money, I take it so personally. And, when they don't do what I want them to do, it upsets me because I'm like, you have no idea what this is like. And if you did,
You would choose to do it.
you would, yeah. So it's a struggle every day and I'm learning every day. And I know there's a lot I don't know, but I'm trying to build a team around me of professionals that are strong in the areas I need them to be. So I think it's just about having the right team around you.
And I'll add something real quick too, Lauren, which is if there's a third act to our lives, the third act will be Erin talking frankly about the challenges that you face as an executive director asking for money for something that most people will never experience in their lifetime. And the real truths, right? The like, speak your truth and to your mantra, to your purpose is get out there and be authentically who you are. And there's a inherent rub in not being able to do that because you need them to buy into your vision, even though you understand, of course, that like, man, people are just making this so much more difficult than it needs to be. And so I look forward to those days where you can,
Speak
not be
freely.
the executive director and you can speak frankly about,
Yeah.
about sometimes how difficult it is, because really it would be, I think, enlightening, not to like poke people in the eye or make fun of organizations or other people. That's not the point. The point is to establish the fact that the complexity of this and the difficulty day in and day out is in some cases harder than for profits because it is
Pride swallowing.
it's just sometimes just the disrespect and lack of respect that you see is frustrating. Having said all that, that's the third act, so we can get to that later.
Ooh,
But I do
can't
think
wait.
the team aspect of it, I think that's what's so great about him and I is that at this point in our life now, you think that you will experience success by the time you're 30. And here we are, Blair will be turning 50 years old a week after this Grab Your Life by the Goals Summit. Crazy. But I think that we're both just now hitting the point in our life where we're hitting our stride, with our families, with our jobs, with our, our love life. And that's crazy that you never think it would happen at that point. I mean, we talk about work with each other probably too much, but there's nothing better than having somebody that is your person that you can talk about with anything. I mean, he gives me advice every day. I give him advice every day. And I think that that's not something that is found very often in relationships, especially at our age. Usually by this point, they're starting to peter out and die out. You don't want to hang out with that person anymore. But we're like the opposite, where, you know, anytime I have anything cool to go to, like, I want to take him. Anything cool that happens in my life, he's the first person I want to call. And I think it's interesting that it's happening to us late in our 40s as opposed to in our early 30s. So we just encourage people to stay patient because, you know,
Yeah, it's not.
we never would have thought it would be this late in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. Nobody teaches you that. Like, it isn't like this is the order of operations of your life. But I think there's just such a grandiose assumption that, I haven't achieved anything at a certain point of time, or I'm 35, or I'm 40, or I'm 25, and maybe social media and popular culture doesn't help, because the only things you see are those that are kicking ass, and you never see a post about somebody who's like, I've done nothing with my life and I'm 40. Like, they would never post that, right? And so the challenge becomes, there's more people out there that probably don't realize there's more to come than there are that have done it early and can socialize their success. I mean, I spent a lot of time in my career working at McDonald's in corporate marketing, and Ray Kroc didn't found McDonald's till he was 52 years old. And
Yes.
it didn't, maybe the world's most famous brand was not created until he was 52 years old. And so, like, I mean, what can't you do? And nowadays you can be 75 years old and Richard Branson taking rockets out to space in his 70th birthday. Like, I just, it's not cliche. It is actually real, because we're living the fact that our second act is in the second act. We didn't have a second act in our first act, right? Or early in life. Exciting.
So all these things are happening. I mean, if you look back, say 10 years ago from now, never could have predicted this. Both of you were saying, I'm never going to get married again. And now you have this super fun, kick-ass blended family. You have 6 kids combined?
5.
5 kids combined. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. And what is that life like? What is it like, blending the 2 families? And
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
I love it. We were telling you that, I had 2 girls and a boy. He had 2 girls and a boy. So our boys have never had a brother. And watching them together,
6 months apart.
Yeah, they're only 6 months apart. We have a senior and a junior, and they are absolutely hilarious together. Like, they couldn't be more opposite. But when we sit and watch, we go to dinner, it's just like, we're really going to miss this, because not only did this whole thing become something so special for him and I, but for certain parts of our kids, it was too. I mean, when we're all together, it's just a freaking shit show, honestly, because our kids are all have such big personalities that it's just, you add a little bit of alcohol to that, and it's absolutely insane in this house. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree for Erin and I and our kids. And I think all of our kids really just kind of demand the microphone. And so when the 5 of us are together, there's only one mic. And so it's hard, there's a little bit of a land. Yeah, sorry, the 7 of us together. There's like a land grab as to who can speak. And it makes for super funny and just hilarious conversation. And they're all different stages of their lives. My kids are a bit older than Erin's kids, and so they're going through life things. I have my oldest daughter is out of college and is in the workforce. I have a daughter who's in college, and another one is my son's a senior, Erin's a junior, Sophia's in 8th grade. And I think we're still parenting, right? Like, I'm parenting differently now with my oldest daughter, because we talk about work stuff as opposed to, like, did you study? Did you hand in your homework? Like, do you need new clothes for school? It's not like it's a shift. And so you can take those pieces and then reapply them to what is going with the rest of our kids. It's fascinating to have the spread of ages that way, because and they're all different. I mean, I think all the kids are unique in their own way. And it just they can express it so effectively that I think as parents, it's fun, because we're like, oh, we need to remember that. Like, we tell our kids, like, why aren't you doing more things the way Avery did to get her career going? And they're like, well, I'm not like her. And then we tell Avery, like, you think more about this like they do. And Fletcher does this. And Sophia's like, hey, why don't you want to do that? And it's just fascinating how the mechanisms, I'm sorry, the changes that go on for us to parent is like never ending.
And we're two different types of parents too. So.
Yes, very much so.
I
It's
just,
fun. It's great. We love
I
it.
love hanging out with you guys. Like, I wish we had our wine and our old fashions right now.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
The
yes,
parenting
yes.
stories again came up at dinner and they were hilarious. Just
Mm.
so funny. And the way they tell them are so funny. And you two just were always barreling toward each other all these years and decades ago. And here you found each other. You're here.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the phrase that keeps coming to my mind right now is your best days are still ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
that about my life. I mean, I have some of those sensations that you guys were talking about. Like, I'm 40. I thought my business would be further along by now, or I thought I would be more fit, or what we'd have more money, right? Like, I thought we'd be in a different state than we are by now, but it doesn't mean it's not 24 months away or 2 weeks away. Like, it does not mean that it's right around the corner. You guys are
Absolutely right.
living freaking proof of that. And just the energy between you
Exactly.
is electric, it's magnetic, and I cannot wait for people to meet you at the summit. I have just one more little nugget to talk about. It's a bit of a pivot. But Blair, when you were when we were at dinner the other night, you were talking about during your divorce and single years, you used that time to kind of throw yourself into the Charlotte community. And you did, because when I met you, you were, heading up marketing for Ortho Carolina and doing Skill Pop and multiple boards. So can you share some of the things that you're passionate about in Charlotte and the world of marketing, all the things that you do?
Yeah. Happy to. Yeah.
He's legendary.
Yeah.
I think so. I agree.
Yeah. I had to sort of settle into the idea that I would be required to create sort of a new identity, because not my old identity was gone, but it needed a new one, right? It needed to have a second version of myself. And so I just tried to find tribes of people that I could associate with. And I've had several, I tell them all the time, Erin, all the time, like, there's chapters in your life, and you don't disregard the first chapter or the third chapter or the fifth chapter, even though you're on the 10th, because they informed where you got to. And so I've had these multiple chapters. And so I threw myself, interestingly enough, into, at the time I lived in Charlotte, not 2009, 2010. It's like the local craft beer scene. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but at the time it was really new. It was novel. There was not a lot of it going on. It is now super, you have trip over breweries now in Charlotte.
Yep.
But I kind of threw myself into it. And I was lucky enough to find a tribe of guys that kind of just embraced me and became a little bit of my identity. And I met people through that space, all the while staying in the marketing community and doing those things. Expanded my time into doing more marketing leadership, marketing leadership and marketing teaching. Got to meet Haley from Skill Pop and started teaching. I did more in the local community scene and got on some local boards and met people that way. And then when you look back, 5-6 years go by and you realize, wow, I've got this network of people who are resourcing you for multiple reasons. And it sort of gives you a whole new rationale for being, doing what you do every day. And really, it's to advocate for the place where you work and live. I just happen to be in marketing, or I just happen to be on the board of an urban market, or I just happen to be on the board of a creative charity, but I'm just advocating for the place that we live and work. And also good for business.
Yes,
Right?
certainly.
More people that move here and those that move here that stay here, it's good for all business. There's no business that cannot benefit from having more people to have as customers or patrons or donors or participants. And so, yeah, I just continue to just lean into it. I mean, I like to say I never say no to a meeting. It may take me a while to schedule it, but I never say no to a meeting. I meet everybody all the time, everywhere. And the big town, small city of Charlotte is the ideal, formula for being able to build a network and be successful in networking. If the three of us lived in New York City, we might not know one another, or LA. It's just too big. You've got to find your tribe in those big cities. And I think Charlotte is almost like its own tribe. And I would venture to say that in the marketing space, and specifically in the healthcare marketing space, I know everybody. And that's not a brag, that there's nothing important about that, other than it's the right size city with the right formula to be able to have influence in that space. And I've become a teacher and a mentor and a confidant in others. And I get people asking me questions all the time for advice. And it's flattering and it's rewarding, but I can't really think I've earned it. I've put the time in to develop that strategy and develop that reputation, and people seek me out for it. So
one of the cool things about being with Blair is, well, number one, sometimes I forget who he is because we're just like, sitting on the couch together.
Yeah.
But when we go out, he's very noticeable in Charlotte. A lot of people are like, oh my God, he's the godfather of Charlotte. Like, he has made so many people's dreams come true because he was the one that gave me my start. He was the one that told me to do this thing. He was the first person that, was there to build Axios with Ted Williams, or Savage Way with Tori and Paula. I mean, really, a lot of the things that you guys know in Charlotte are because he was the first investor that said yes at Ortho Carolina to get these people their start. So, I mean, I feel like all the time people run into us and they're like, oh my gosh, Blair, yeah, anything you guys need. Blair is like the person that pushed me to do this or gave me my start. And it's just like, what a cool legacy to live, is to think that so many people are now living the life that they're supposed to be living because of something he did. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm crying again. God, you guys.
Very, very lucky. And I think, it's, the right size market too, like I said, if we lived in, Philly or Boston, I'm not sure this would be the case, but Charlotte was just the right size. The ingredients of that, pie was just the right size for it to work. And I think it has. And really, in earnest, I've been doing this now for, 13 years. Really since 2010, I really leaned hard into like, be somebody that's an advocate for the community and do so in a way where there is no network I don't want to be a part of. I'm part of so many networks, and it's just fun and engaging, and it defines a little bit of who I am, I think. So it's great.
Yeah, you are the guy, but so are you, Erin. You're the woman. Like, you two are the people that people in Charlotte want to meet. And Blair is not lying when he says he never says no to a meeting, because I just remembered how we first met. When I was first getting started as a baby entrepreneur, I cold messaged you because I saw your job title on LinkedIn. Any chance you'd want to have a coffee? And you were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's
Even
do it.
though it was a badly worded message and there was no reason for you to say yes, you did. And we've been in touch for 5-6 years now. So it's, these stories are true and they're amazing.
Times a week, he's at a coffee shop having coffee with somebody who has a question for him. He goes every time.
Yeah, it's the best. It's where I get my energy from. So if I didn't do it, it'd be weird. Like, COVID was a terrible time for me in that regard, because like, it was just hard to like find, for multiple reasons, of course, but like specifically on this topic, I think, I get my energy from those moments. It makes me better at what I do day to day, better dad, better husband, better friend. And so I relish those moments. They're terrific.
So in case it's not obvious, this is, for anybody listening, why you need to get your ass to this summit, because these two alone can teach you about success in the second act, overcoming hardship, faith, building a nonprofit, networking, marketing geekery, right?
Yeah.
I could go on. And also you'll laugh
your
ass off if you hang out with them. So these two alone would be worth the price of the ticket to come hang out. And I would encourage you to think about a VIP ticket, because then you can come have dinner in a more intimate setting and hear the not safe for work jokes, the 2 glasses.
I would say that's where the real,
that's where the fun's going to be.
Meeting happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the speakers and a few other select VIPs will be there. So if you get your ticket, you're getting an all access pass to people who really care about your success and want you to have success in your next act and know that your best days are ahead of you. So Blair and Erin, this has been so much fun. I'm going to invite myself to the speakeasy in your home one of these days, because I want to have some drinks with you guys.
The light is on. We're home. We're serving.
I love it. Well, thank you both for being here. I cannot wait for the summit. And for those listening, thank you for tuning into the Grab Life by the Goals podcast, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Grab Life by the Goals podcast. If you loved this episode, I would be thrilled if you subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast, so that you can get notified when an episode drops and we can rendezvous like this every single week. If you're feeling frisky, maybe slap a 5-star review on this bitch, and maybe even some comments about what inspired you from this podcast episode. This is simply so more people can find us and join our squad of badassery. I love me some Instagram, so come find me. My handle is @LaurenWidrick, and if you screenshot and share this episode with your peeps, I'll come shower you with all the virtual hugs and kisses. Until next time, grab life by the goals, my friend.